Do not close this video now. If something brought you here today amid so many other videos you could be watching, it was not by chance. The same weight that has been trying to crush your mind in recent weeks does not want you to hear what I'm about to reveal in the next few minutes. There is a plan that was laid against you even before you understood your own worth, and the good news is that this is not the only plan in play. There is another, older, stronger that was in motion even before the first one began. But for you to reach this truth, I must first show you what they have tried to hide from you, why you feel tired, lonely, and forgotten, even while doing everything right. Stay until the end, because what I'm about to tell you could change the way you see every closed door, every friendship that has grown cold, every night you spent crying without knowing exactly why. You wake up tired before the day has even begun, and it is not sleep. Sleep is resolved with a few hours of rest. What you feel is something else, deeper, more ancient, a soul weariness that no night of good sleep can erase. You carry the house, the work, the children who grow up demanding more than you imagined, the parents who age and begin to need you the way you once needed them. You carry the bills that never balance the way they should, the body that no longer responds as it once did, and yet you are the one who must appear strong so that no one around you falls apart. Over time, you learn to smile in public and cry in the shower, with the water turned on loud so that no one on the other side of a closed door realizes it. You are surrounded by people, in your family, at work, in the group, at the church, in the circle of friends that formed 20 years ago. And even surrounded, you feel a loneliness that no one sees, because on the outside everything is in order, everything is on track, everything is under control. Only you know the scale of the facade that sustains this appearance. You have lost count of how many doors have closed without explanation. That job that did not come after so many interviews. That relationship that turned cold out of nowhere, without a fight, without a reason you could point your finger at. That friendship of years that simply vanished, thinning out until it no longer existed. And the most painful thing was never a closed door itself. It was the question that kept hammering away afterward. What did I do wrong? After 35, after 40 years, life demands a different price for every fresh start. You no longer have the energy of before to rise from scratch, but you still carry within your chest dreams that never made it off the paper. There is a very specific, silent, almost invisible exhaustion belonging to those who have spent their whole lives being the pillar for others and have never truly had someone stop and ask, "And you, how are you on the inside?" Perhaps you look in the mirror and recognize a fatigue that is not just on your face. It is a fatigue that has aged you inside faster than the calendar. You see people your age, schoolmates, cousins, neighbors, who seem to have gone through life without stumbling as much as you. And that uncomfortable question arises, why was it easier for them? You pray, you go to the church, you try to do everything right. And sometimes even that becomes one more burden, because it feels like you need to smile there too, you need to appear victorious there too, you need to pretend one more time that everything is fine in front of people who are also pretending. And at the end of Sunday, after raising your hands and singing the right hymns, you go home with the exact same knot in your throat that you took into the chapel. But I need to tell you something now before I continue, because this will change the way you listen to the rest of this video. None of this is by chance, and none of this is your failure. There is a reason this weariness began so early in your life, and this reason will hurt before it sets you free. Stay with me. The pain you carry is not a sign that the Almighty has forgotten you. It is a sign that there was a recognition long before you recognized it yourself. There is an ancient principle in any war, spiritual or otherwise. No one wastes time, ammunition, or strategy attacking someone who poses no threat whatsoever. A siege is built around those who carry something that must be silenced before it matures. If your life has been marked by difficulties that came too soon, by losses at the wrong time, by rejections that made no sense given the effort you put in, perhaps the explanation lies not in what you did wrong, but in what was too valuable within you, something that needed to be combated before it could even blossom before your very eyes. There is a phrase by C.S. Lewis that summarizes well what I want to tell you now, and he did not write it from the armchair of someone who had never suffered. He wrote it after burying the person he loved most in life. Pain, he said, is the megaphone the Almighty uses to rouse a deaf world. The Almighty whispers in our pleasures, speaks gently in our conscience, but shouts in our pains, for that is where our attention finally surrenders. This is what he called severe mercy. Severe because it does not spare, it does not soften the blow, it does not pretend it will hurt less than it does. Mercy because, despite everything, it does not abandon. The Almighty does not withdraw comfort to punish you. He withdraws comfort when comfort has become anesthesia. When you were too comfortable to hear the calling he placed in you before the foundation of the world, long before any resume, any degree, any approval you have chased your entire life. The desert you have crossed, or perhaps are crossing right now as you hear this, was not abandonment. It was surgery, and all surgery hurts. All surgery isolates the patient from the noise outside for a while, but no serious surgeon operates on someone with the intention of leaving them worse off than they were before. The Almighty allowed the silence of certain phases, the closing of certain cycles, the temporary distance from certain environments, because there was something in you too precious to be exposed too soon. Oil poured out at the wrong time is lost on the floor before it can anoint anything. Talent recognized too early, without root, without depth, breaks in the first real storm. Think of how many times, still young, you already carried a weight that was not for your age. Perhaps it was responsibility thrust upon your shoulders too early, a care that should have been an adult's, but fell upon you as a child, or a disappointment that arrived before you had the maturity to process it. This is not a statistical coincidence scattered at random across your biography. It is the trail of a war that began before you had the vocabulary to name it. And the reason so many people of your generation carry this same type of story, in such a similar way, is precisely this. When there is a weighty calling, the attack also arrives with weight, and it arrives early, before you have the structure to defend yourself alone. Ephesians 6:11 provides a direct instruction. Put on the armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Notice the word used there. Wiles. It is not an accident. It is not a random misfortune scattered by chance across the universe. It is strategy, planned, directed, and no one sets a trap for someone who poses no danger to the kingdom of darkness. The magnitude of the attack you have suffered is, in a strange and painful way, a measure of the magnitude of what you carry. I wrote a resource on this exact process because I myself spent years trying to understand why my life seemed harder than that of those around me who, to the outside eye, did less and suffered less. It is called the Chosen One Complex, turning your solitude into your greatest strength. It is an ebook I prepared precisely to delve deeper into what a single video can only touch upon, how to recognize the signs of this calling, how to cross the wilderness without getting lost within it, and how to come out on the other side with authority instead of accumulated bitterness. The link is in the description and pinned to the top of the comments, should you wish to dive deeper later. You don't need to stop now. Stay with me until the end, because the most important part is yet to come. Romans 12:2 says not to be conformed to this world, but to be transformed by the renewal of our minds. Notice the order of the words. It doesn't say, change your circumstances first, and then your mind will adjust. It says the opposite. Change your mind first, because that is where the real battle happens before it manifests anywhere else visible in your life. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you physically if he can convince you year after year, whisper after whisper, that you are too small, too tired, too late for what the Almighty placed within you when you were still just a project in his heart. And that is exactly where the most efficient trap against people of your generation lies, the lie that your time has passed. Past 35, 40, 50, and a voice whispers, soft, almost affectionate, that the time of the calling is behind you, buried along with the opportunities that never came. That voice lies. Revelation 3:8 holds a promise I want you to guard with care. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. It is not a door you will need to break down with your own strength, sweaty and weary. It is a door that is already open right now because no power of darkness has the power to close what the Almighty has opened, even if it has managed to shut everything else around it. Notice something important. This open door in Revelation was not given as a prize for good behavior. It was given to a small church, without much strength, almost forgotten among the other 6 letters in the book. The Almighty was not rewarding performance. He was recognizing faithfulness in the little, in obscurity, in the place where no one applauded. And that is where there is huge relief for you, who spent your whole life thinking you needed to produce more, appear more, achieve more, to deserve any blessing. Your identity was never tied to your performance. It was tied the whole time to a calling that already existed before any of your resumes. But I still need to show you the most painful territory where part of this war took place. It wasn't at work. It wasn't in your finances. It was inside your home, within your closest circle. And that is what I need to talk about now with great care, because this part tends to hurt in a different way. I need to be honest with you here. Not every closed door was an attack from hell. Some were mercy disguised as loss. The Almighty does not call you to distrust those who love you, and this video is not an invitation for you to start viewing your family as spiritual enemies. That would be oversimplifying a pain that deserves more care than that. What I want to show you is something else, more subtle, and for many people your age, much harder to admit out loud. You may have spent your whole life begging for approval from people who, honestly, might never have been in a position to give it to you, and called it love out of habit, out of upbringing, out of fear of naming the thing for what it really is. There is a vast difference between loving someone and needing their approval to feel worthy of existing. The first is a bond. The second is a prison disguised as affection. You can deeply love your family, your longtime friends, your faith community, and still need to stop organizing your entire identity around what these people think of you with every decision you make. This is not coldness. It is not ingratitude. It is not rebellion. It is spiritual maturity arriving late, but arriving nonetheless. A true chosen one does not cut off those he loves on a whim. He simply stops begging for recognition from those who will never understand the weight he carries on his shoulders, and begins to seek, with discernment and without guilt, those who are truly capable of walking beside him in this new phase. Because real community, true support, people who add value instead of just consuming, the Almighty provides this as well in the right time. Denying this pursuit in the name of a misunderstood spiritual independence is merely trading one prison for another with prettier walls. In practice, this can mean simple things that are difficult to sustain at first. Not replying to messages in the middle of the night just because someone decided to dump their crisis on you yet again. Saying no to a request without explaining yourself for 20 minutes as if you were on trial. Leaving a conversation that exists only to diminish you, with courtesy but without hesitation. None of these actions is a lack of love. It is the difference between serving with a whole heart and being used to the point of exhaustion in the name of love. The Almighty asks for the former. He never asked for the latter. It is exactly this discernment, between protecting your peace and isolating your heart from those who truly deserve to be close, that I detail with more depth in the ebook, The Chosen One Complex, turning your solitude into your greatest strength, with the link in the description and pinned in the comments. If this excerpt touched something ancient within you, perhaps it is time to look at this with more time and more depth than a video of a few minutes can offer. Now I want to lead you to the practical side of this revelation, because knowledge without action becomes just another pretty video that you watch today and forget tomorrow morning in the middle of the usual rush. Putting on the armor of God is not just a poetic image to decorate a sermon. It is a daily decision, almost mechanical at first, to refuse a thought of defeat before it can settle and take root. It is waking up and declaring, even without any desire to do so at that moment, that you are not the sum of your failures or your accumulated losses. It is setting an iron limit with those who only drain your energy, without needing long speeches or detailed justifications, because whoever demands infinite explanations to respect a boundary of yours, deep down, was never going to respect it anyway. It is to stop treating spiritual exhaustion as a character flaw, and start treating it as a clear sign that the time has come to retreat a little, pray, realign in silence, and only then return stronger to the field. A chosen one is not someone without any wounds. He is someone who has learned over time and through pain to take the wound to the right place, instead of carrying it alone until he explodes from within or dries up little by little without anyone noticing. This translates into concrete things, the size of an ordinary day. Before picking up your phone in the morning, a few minutes of silence and prayer, even if it's just 5, to remember who you are before the world starts telling you who you should be. A short phrase kept for moments when thoughts attack, something like, "I will not believe everything I think about myself today." An honest examination from time to time of which ties are strengthening you and which are just slowly draining you. Without fanfare, without drama, just observation and adjustment. Small decisions repeated every day are the armor of God. No one puts on armor only once and walks around thinking they are protected forever. If your spirit recognizes this truth so far, write 777 in the comments now before you continue watching the rest of this video. It is not superstition, it is a simple declaration. I acknowledge the calling, and I will no longer run from it out of fear or fatigue. There comes a moment in the life of someone who carries such a calling where fatigue turns into a decision. You stop asking why it happened to you and start asking what it happened to you for. This change in question changes practically everything because it takes you out of the position of victim of your own story and restores your place as protagonist under the authority of the Almighty in how you will respond to what remained after the storm. The difficult years were not wasted. Even if they seemed useless while you were going through each one of them, they were the hidden training of someone who, one day, would need to be standing exactly when others around them were falling. You did not go through all this to remain the same size as before. You went through it to carry, with more weight of authority and less weight of accumulated bitterness, the same pain that once knocked you down alone in the dark, and that now can turn into a testimony for someone who is still at the beginning of their own desert, not knowing they will emerge from it whole. Spiritual authority, the way the Bible describes it, never had much to do with the stage, a microphone, or public recognition. It had to do with someone who truly walked through fire and yet chose to keep trusting, to keep serving, to keep standing, even without an audience, even without applause, even without anyone knowing the magnitude of the battle within. That is the authority that no one can manufacture in a quick course or copy by watching someone else's video. It is only born from the same place your pain was born. And that is why what you went through, far from disqualifying you, is exactly what qualifies you for the next chapter, the one yet to come. If you have made it this far, this content is no longer a coincidence for you. It is confirmation of something you may have suspected for a long time. It is precisely for this turning point that I wrote the ebook, The Chosen One Complex, Turning Your Solitude into Your Greatest Strength, with the link in the description and pinned at the top of the comments. It exists to help you not to waste this turning point by watching one more video today and returning tomorrow to exactly the same routine as always, with the same weight on your shoulders. I need to tell you one last thing before wrapping up this video, and I want you to listen carefully. Because this isn't closing rhetoric. It is the most important point of everything said so far. From now on, you no longer have the excuse of not knowing. You knew that pain had a purpose. You knew that the desert was surgery and not punishment. You knew that the door no one can shut had been an open door before you all along. And yet, will you choose to shrink back again into the same environments that taught you to doubt your own worth? Or will you rise up differently, with the armor of God worn, with boundaries set without guilt, with your mind being renewed day after day, ready to carry what the Almighty specifically set apart for you to carry, and that no one else can carry the way you do? Think of all the times you almost gave up and didn't. Think of how many nights you thought you wouldn't be able to get up in the morning, and, in some way you cannot quite explain, you did. That wasn't luck, nor just your own stubbornness. It was sustenance. It was a hand holding you from beneath while you thought you were falling alone in the dark. And if you have resisted this far, it is because what is reserved on the other side of this desert weighs more than everything you have lost on the way until now. This video was not by chance. It was a calling. And a calling heard and ignored weighs differently on the conscience than a calling that was never heard at all. If you want to delve deeper into each stage of this process, from the recognition of the wound to the full activation of this authority, the ebook, The Chosen One Complex, Turning your solitude into your greatest strength is waiting for you, with the link in the description and pinned to the top of the comments. It was written for those who, like you, have already realized that you can no longer live small after hearing all of this. And before I close this video, comment for me. I have been restored and sent forth, not as a magic formula, but as a seal, as a declaration that you received this today and will not let it fall into tomorrow's oblivion amidst the usual rush. I will be here in the next video continuing this journey by your side. Until then, go in peace, but go with the armor of God worn.